In your book, Remote Viewing Secrets, you wrote, remote viewing is a paranormal function.
Right.
Can you explain a little bit why?
Yeah, it's what it is in order for human to survive in our first exposure on this planet, we had to have some advantage that other animals don't have. Survival of a wolf pack, for instance, there's a probability that a wolf pack will survive in the wild a lot faster and longer than a human will. We don't have long nails. We don't have savage teeth. We don't have the smeller they have. And we certainly don't know how to hunt, run down, and kill game. So we'd all be dead. We'd be gone. But instead, here we are. We cover the whole planet. Uh, we're outgrowing our food production. So something's going to have to be done about how many babies are made in the future, or a lot of people are going to starve. So we're that good? No, I don't think so. I think there's an item that we have that no other animal has, and that's the ability to sense danger, sense
Mm,
something that's going to end a life. Um, and
right.
there's a Dr. Dean Radin who proved that, by the way. What he
Mm,
did is he wires someone up the ring finger to the index finger, and he runs it into a computer and produces an output. And so on a screen, you can see this little line moving. It's off these two fingers. And what happens is, let's say he can make an event occur. He'll come up behind the person sitting in the chair blindfolded or whatever. And they don't have to be, but he did in the initial, I think, the initial testing. But he comes up there with two sticks and he goes smack right by the person's ear, and it startles them. So they jump in the chair. Well,
mm,
on the readout for these two fingers, there's a peak at that snap, a huge peak, and then it slowly dies off as everything resyncs in the body and the mind. Okay.
mhm,
What he noticed is way out front, about 1.5 to 2.5 seconds, there's a tiny little bump that looks exactly like the big one.
mm,
And so he said, that's a warning.
mm,
So to test it, what you do is you create an event that's going to happen automatically that you
mhm,
have no control over. And you wire somebody up to their two fingers, and you put a red light to a helmet that they put on or something. And as they're approaching the event, what happens is 2 seconds prior to, let's say, an IED going off, uh, just as they get to the IED and the IED is detonated, you get that huge spike and then
mhm,
play off. But right in front, 2.5 seconds earlier, there's this little midget of a bump. And
mhm,
if you pay attention to that, if the computer looks at that or sees that, it will light up the three lights in the helmet, and the guy stops to brake on the vehicle. The vehicle stops, and the ID goes off 35 yards in front.
mhm.
You just saved an entire Jeep load of people by
Right.
just wiring up two fingers.
Wow.
Now, the things you don't know is you don't know if over time, if people do that on a regular basis, do they become accustomed to it and no
Mhm.
longer produce that little bump? We don't know that. But that certainly is something we should be researching. I mean, if you want to save lives in a combat zone, you want to do that.